Hey guys, here Rich with Thrill the Treasure doing a quick video for you. Last one I did was kind of just a quick one with my son, so I want to do something I've been working on for about a week, and I thought was pretty cool. Nothing groundbreaking, like I put in the description. No ciphers or no codes. What I did was I kind of looked at the poem and just did one little tweak that I thought that could be possible when Forrest wrote the poem. Something that I'd be capable of doing would be to write the poem and then find words inside the poem that I felt were kind of too common and look for some more, as I put in the description, poemy ways to put it. And I do believe that Forrest has referenced a few times, being an architect and looking in the dictionary at different word meanings and stuff like that when he did the poem. So I don't think this is a stretch. So I want to make quite clear, I'm not trying to rewrite his poem, you know what I'm saying, or anything like that. I'm not trying to discredit his poem or just change anything. I'm just looking at it in a different way that's simple and not complex. And I was absolutely shocked at what some of the changes possibly could lead to and mean. I really was. It could mean nothing. And in fact, the odds are it probably doesn't mean anything, but I want to share it with you guys. So let's do the first stanza. Below here, I just pulled up a simple copy of his poem, and then I'm going to kind of reveal every stanza how I did it. So here's the first one. So he has, as I've gone alone in there, and with my treasures bold, I can keep my secret where and henna riches new and old. So when looking at the synonyms for the words that are bolded are the ones that I replaced. So let's read this with the simple version. Actually, I forgot to bold departed there. Sorry about that. Okay. So as I have departed unaccompanied in there, and with my gold fearless, I can have my secluded location and mention of gold recent and aged. So right away we get some clarification and more of like plain speak, like that's how someone actually would speak to you. For example, as I've gone alone in there, it just sounds a little bit more obvious because I have departed unaccompanied in there. At least to me, it's a little bit easier to understand. The second line, I didn't really get too much clarification on that. Not big difference. And with my treasures bold, with my gold fearless. Third line, I really like the change. I can keep my secret where. I can have my secluded location. I never really put where, the word where with location, but it can mean that your secret where means your secret location, or it can mean your secret location. Also, secret could be secluded. So I like the way that came out. So I can have my secluded location. Now, the first stanza, this is what I think could be the most prolific possibility. It goes from in hinges of riches new and old, and mention of gold recent and aged. So I think, needless to say, even with that line, people have wondered if the location where it's hidden either has an old history of having other treasures there. That's kind of how I take it, or some type of riches that made that community or that area have riches. Maybe resources. I'm not sure, but I like the way that read and mention of gold recent and aged as opposed to and hint of riches new and old. Okay, so that's the first stanza. And again, the bolded, or all I did there was just go to synonyms and replace the words in this poem with something that is a synonym for it. That's 99% of what I did in the poem. So we'll go to the next one. Let's see. So next stanza, begin at where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down, not far, but too far to walk, put in below the home of Brown. This is the simplified version. Initiate it where comfortable waters stop, pause, or freeze. So guys, whenever you see the quotations like or the parentheses, I just put a few examples of the synonym, not just one. So I picked stop as a synonym to use, but also there's 2 other examples we could use. Now, comfortable for warm is actually, that came from Forrest, his definition of warm. So I just I highlighted that. I thought that was interesting. You can find that on Terry Scant. So begin it where warm waters halt turns into ignition it where comfortable waters stop, pause, or freeze. And take it in the canyon down, and take it into the canyon downhill. That's a synonym for down. So not too much there, not too different. Not long, but too long to hike. Not far, but too far to walk. I like that change. It's a little bit more simple. And walk and hike, I know if you guys have been out in the field numerous times, it's definitely a hike and not a walk. So it kind of puts us more in context of what we're dealing with out there. Also, long compared to far, you can comprehend that better in language. So not long, but too long to hike. Okay, now here's the big one. Put in below the home of Brown. Install or install beneath or under the den or household of Brown. So, I mean, yes, we could talk about this line forever and the difference and kind of like what it might mean and what it might open up. Out of install, that's one thing. Beneath or under, another. I talked about beneath or under as far as like 3-dimensional in my video about looking at the poem more like instead of north, south, east to west, being in the virtual reality of the poem and looking up, looking down. But my biggest takeaway from it is the den or household right there. Because it really makes you understand that the home of Brown, more than likely, and again, more than likely is a strong way to put it, guys. We all know that this is just an opinion. But when you look at the synonyms for home, I'm not, in my opinion, I don't know how it could be a living thing. Okay, because it's like den and household. If he's talking about say, Gypsy's Kiss had a really good video I liked about the home of Brown possibly being like the place where brown paint comes from and his relationship with the artist. And that's a great video. I would check it out if I were you guys. I'll actually put Gypsy's Kiss. I'll put that video link down below to reference them. But what I like about that, watching that, is it kind of puts this in perspective too, is that if he was talking about something that wasn't like a living being, why would he use the word home? You know what I'm saying? Put in below the area of Brown or the place of Brown would be much, much, much more conducive to it being like a inanimate thing that isn't a living thing. So I'm one of those people that tend to think the home of Brown is a living person or a living animal. Okay. And then the fact, and I know that I made a mistake on my last video saying that he said there's no structures associated with the home of Brown. That's not true. He did not say that. He said the treasure wasn't in a structure. What I meant to say was he has said that the search could go on for 100 to 1,000 years. You know, he said many things. So I've said that a house, like a cabin or a house, more than likely wouldn't be the home of Brown because it could be torn down tomorrow. The property could be purchased, or there could be a natural disaster and it could be wiped out. So that makes me think that it's not, the living thing isn't human, it's animal based. Now here's another thing to make me think that. Is there anywhere in this poem that it refers to an animal? No, just to nature. We all know that Forrest loves both. I mean, if you read read the books, he loves nature, he loves animal life. I think it's a far stretch to think that Forrest wouldn't write this poem and not reference wildlife. Okay, so again, I'm just using my logic and my rationale here, knowing Forrest. He does love people, but he loves animals more than people. So I think that kind of lends itself to this. So to me, I just take from this the den household of Brown means the home of an animal. And then I'll leave it at that. I have my ideas of what Brown is based on the search area, and you can hear me kind of comment on that in some of the comment sections. And I'll do a video specifically on that. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it, I guess, because it kind of goes into the next line, which I think is important. I think it might mean grizzly bear, the Homer Brown, put in beneath. Okay, because grizzlies tend to live or habitate up above on north-facing mountains. So it could be a possibility where you put in below, means below on the north face of the mountain where the grizzlies are up above you. Okay, so that's that line. I don't want to go too far into this and make it a long video, but I can go on forever about that. Let's go to the next part. Okay, this is cool. So he says, from there, it's no place for the meek. The end is ever drawing nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. So rewritten and with the synonyms, from there, it's no area for the timid. The end is ever drawing near or close. There will be no paddle up your creek, just big, huge cargo or freight and water tall. Wow. All right. We can, I mean, again, we could just take a whole hour to talk about this. I'm of the opinion that this line right here, if you don't reference it back to the Homer Brown, then I think you're making a mistake, because it's obviously the Homer Brown is close to a place that's no area for the timid. Now, Forrest, and there was some big debate in the comment section about Forrest saying it's safe to go where the treasure's at. And what he said was, don't go where an 80-year-old man wouldn't go. Right? So I think when we've talked about that, and he means terrain, where he couldn't make it there. Right? So I think it's very rational to think that no area for the timid, that doesn't mean terrain, because he's already said that an 80-year-old man can make the terrain. So any terrain that an 80-year-old man can make probably isn't going to be labeled timid or meek, shouldn't go there. So what's he mean by this? And again, I think if you take it back, it's possible. And again, possible, it's an opinion that the Homer Brown, whatever animal that is, it's possible that that's why it's no area for the timid. Does that make it unsafe? Because they say it's grizzlies. Well, no, because I think that all of Yellowstone, there's a potential to see a grizzly. And Glacier National Park up north in Montana, which are both, those two areas are my #1 search areas because of this, guys. The odds of a grizzly bear attack are astronomically low, but they're still there. So if you're, that's no place for a timid or meek. I don't care who you are. If you're in Yellowstone and you're scared of bears or think about it, that's going to be in the back of your mind. That's why people have bells and they have bear spray. But again, it's unlikely, very unlikely. It's like hitting the lottery, a bad lottery, if you do run into one. And then if you run into one, an actual encounter is even less likely. So anyway, I'll stop at that. But I think that it might be a good idea to tie that into that last line, since it's the same area. So why is the Homer Brown put in below the Homer Brown? Why is it not an area for the meek or the timid? There's been some talk on the next line. The end is ever drawing nigh. And a lot of people think left, because of historic meaning nigh being left. And I completely agree with that. But it might be just as simple as the end ever drawing near or close, because that's a synonym for nigh. It might not be that complicated. So keep both of those in mind. There'll be no paddle up your creek. I didn't see any synonym, and I tried it every which way, that made this line easier to understand. And you can try it if you want. And it seems silly when you read it out the way that I had it. And the reason why is I think this is just a trick line. Does it make sense? This is like a saying. This is referencing no paddle up your creek. So that I'll leave that for you guys to figure out. I have my ideas on what that means. This one, wow. Just heavy loads and water high. Just big or huge, cargo or freight, and water tall. I think anyone that reads that right there, we all think the same thing. Railroad tracks, right? Or possibly a road with semis. I don't know if it's that simple. I really don't. But it's interesting what that comes to when you put in the synonyms for that part of the poem. That blew my mind. Before I did this, when I read heavy loads, I never thought water for heavy loads. I thought a few different things, and I'll go ahead and tell you what I thought just before I did this. I did think something transporting heavy loads. So I did think railroad, and I did think semi on a road. So And still to this day, when I'm looking at my solves, I'm looking for railroads or historic railroads close by that maybe possibly brought out old treasure, old gold mine, or even recent stuff. We know that Forrest has mentioned trains. He loves trains. I do believe, though I don't want to take that too far. I don't know if he loves them, but I do believe he's referenced them in many things. I know that he in many things. So it would be a stretch to think if that was a reference to trains. Semis, I think, is less likely, like a road nearby, but the 200, 500 feet things makes that possible that it is a road. Another thing I thought, there'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high, is you simply just referencing what you got coming up once you find the treasure. You got heavy loads coming up because you got to take that treasure at least in 1 or 2 trips. So you might just be mentioning the treasure, that you have to take the box and you have to take the treasure just like he did. So you have a few trips with heavy loads coming up. Or the last thing that I think is possible, heavy loads could mean mountains. And I haven't heard anyone say that. I'm sure someone has, but for whatever reason, when I first read that, I thought like mountains, because mountains are heavy loads, just big, huge piles of rock, right? So that could be more of a broader definition, which I think probably is likely. I don't know as well. So water tall, water high there at the end. I didn't get a lot from that, but if you guys use Terry Scant, Forrest once answered a question, and he put in parentheses water high, and he talked about throwing his bicycle in there. And what I got from that is, I think, in my opinion, I think water high isn't a waterfall. I think it's a deep amount of water, because he referenced throwing a bicycle in there to hide it. So just go to Terry Scant. It's the only place I've seen him actually reference water high in the context, and I'm taking that as a way to solve the end of that. So I'm looking for either high, like water, like floodplain, or like a high, it's like water, like a deep water. Okay. All right, on to the next. And again, guys, I don't want to make this too long. I'm sorry if I'm taking too long. I want to try to hurry up. Okay, so next part. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down your quest to cease. But Terry Scant with marvel gaze, just take the chest and go in peace. With the synonyms added. If you have been smart or perceptive and found the brightness, look instantly or immediately downward, your pursuit or hunt to stop or conclude. But delay or dawdle slight or short, with wonder fixed stare, just take the gold and go in peace. Again, I love that. To me, this cleared up some stuff possibly. Smart, perceptive, and wise. There's not too much in the first line that makes it like an epiphany. Blaze was extremely hard to find a synonym for. Brightness was one of them. I just want to put a synonym. I didn't want to make up like what I thought it was. There is one word, if you look at blaze, and I forget what it was, that goes into like water falling or rushing lava, or basically it's a possibility that you can link that blaze to another word that links to that synonym. I'll let you guys do the research on that. I thought that was interesting, but I didn't want to put that because it's not a direct synonym. Look instantly downward and your pursuit, hunt to stop, conclude. Again, nothing there that we can't get from the original line of the poem. I like this one though. But delay or dawdle, slight or short, with wonder fixed stare. So, but Terry Scant with marvel gaze. I mean, I had no idea what that meant, really. With marvel, I thought maybe like you're gazing at like some type of rock, like because I kept thinking marble there. I know that's silly, but I did. But if you break it down like this, he's basically saying, but delay or dawdle shortly, slight. So don't delay. Don't dawdle around there with the wonder fixed stare. Don't sit there and look at the treasure. That's what he's saying. Just take the gold and go in peace. Why is he saying not to stare? Just get the hell out of there? I don't know. Maybe it goes back to the place of the meek. Maybe it goes back to the brown bear. See what I'm saying? Why would he say that? I mean, he said that he made the treasure look visually stunning on purpose. I just find it interesting that he would put this in there. It's literally a command, in my opinion, to don't take your dawdle shortly with your stare and looking at it. Just take the gold and go in peace and look at it. Maybe again, this is kind of taking it another step. Maybe saying just look at it at the car, get out of there. So does that reference back and help us solve some of the other parts of the poem? I'm not sure. To me, it does. Again, obviously, because my solve is potentially the brown bear, and that makes a lot of sense because if you're in a place for the meek, home up above the home of brown, and you're in where there's grizzlies, I mean, sitting there standing looking at the treasure is probably not the best thing to do. And then, guys, this is my opinion. We could tie that into other animals possibly and stuff like that, but I'm just trying to find parts of the poem that would make everything make sense. This one, I think, could be a possible key because why is he telling us to not take our time? To me, it should be obvious, but take your time and stare as long as you want and enjoy your find. Why does he say this? Okay, so next. Oh, sorry, guys. Okay, so almost done here. So hear me all and listen good. Your efforts will be worth the cold. Oh, excuse me, I missed one. I'm so sorry. So why is it time that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answer is I already know. I've done it, tired and now I'm weak. If you notice, guys, I didn't make any changes in this one. The reason why is to me the meaning is really obvious. I don't see anything in there, in my opinion, that it needs any type of change. And I would love to get your comments. If you think something in there could mean something else, please comment below. And then we're at the final stanza. So I'll read it first. So hear me all and listen good. Your effort will be worth the cold. If you're brave than the wood, I give you title to the gold. Bam. So here's the change. So hear me all and listen good. Your work will be worth the cold. If you're fearless, courageous, and in the forest or woodland, I give you possession or claim to the gold. So I think you guys are all extremely smart. So the first couple, your work, the same as effort. The cold, I've always wondered about cold, but I couldn't find a good synonym to put in there, so I just left it cold. That's a simple, it can't get more simple than cold. I've always wondered if that meant, why has he said worth the cold? You know, because we're looking for it in the spring and summer per his instruction. What's cold about it? Is it water, right? We're getting wet. I wonder about that. But here's where we get some clarification possibly. If you're fearless and courageous and in the forest or woodland. So the sentence for wood is forest and woodland. So I thought that was really cool. It makes you wonder where the treasures, you know what I'm saying? If the treasure's a few 10 or 20 feet or a few yards inside a wood line, right? Because he definitely references possibly forest and woodland. Then you talk about the blaze possibly being on a tree and all that good stuff. So it opens up a lot there. Or I kind of like if you go away from the synonym and you get one, let's say get more specific with forest and woodland, just in the wood, that is a more broad term to me. The wood means nature to me. I think that means a lot to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm in the wood, I'm hiking and there could be mountains and forests. So I think that's probably more likely. I do not think, just based on what he has said, you can see from where the treasure chest is at, that's in the middle of the woods. Because you couldn't see water. You probably couldn't see animals necessarily. So it sounds like it's in a clearing by water. I think you've all came to that conclusion. So this is interesting, but this one might do the opposite. It might be leading us more of a rabbit hole, but it's just interesting that it goes down to that. I'm trying to think if I think anything else on that. Oh, in the blaze, I think I referenced in my top 5 forest comments that he's actually stated that he couldn't tell you which way the blaze faced. So if it was on a wood, on a tree, I think that's an answer that he would give. Now, I don't know if he wouldn't give that because he didn't want to or if he couldn't. But the way he worded it's like it didn't have the blaze didn't face a direction. So that's why in that video I kind of, in my opinion, I think the blaze is when looking at it, you can't really say, hey, it faces north, south, east, or west. What that means, possibly it's a rock that faces every direction, or I went into that on that video, but I think this kind of helps with that. If you look at just the wood, it takes away the forest woodland, because that really, what would the blaze be? It could be a rock, but again, you don't see rocks next to trees in the forest like lots of times. You usually see trees. So again, kind of mumbling, but take that for what you will. And then finally, I'll give you possession claim to the gold. Not a lot there, but I know there's been some talk about what he means by what he said. If there's the gold's really not there, if you have to take a piece of paper and go claim it and all that stuff. I don't see how he would go into great detail about the visual aspect of it and stuff like that. If that was the case, that would be completely lying in essence. If all of a sudden you open up the chest and there's a note that says call Forrest for the gold. So I think this is him, using old verbiage for gold and claim and mines, stuff like that, to make it more whimsical, in my opinion. So that's it, guys. If you want a copy of this, just message me. I'll send you a copy. And again, this is no disrespect to Forrest. I'm not trying to rewrite his poem. I just wanted to keep it simple, but yet let's look deeper and see if we can come up with some stuff. And I think we did. I think that especially in regards to Home of Brown, Home of the Meek, and the Terry Scant, I think I'm putting a connection to all that stuff that might not be there, but I'm trying to figure out why he wants us to not take our time. We find kind of just saying, get the heck out of there. I don't see any other way to read that. And I would love to hear your opinion on if you guys do. So, all right, that's it. I hate to go too long. I'm going to end this. Thanks, guys. Give me your feedback. I'll have something cool coming up in regards to the keyword. I use this also, look at that keyword that can unlock the poem, and a couple other specific things he said about the poem. All right, good day. Bye.